Good day. I am Dr. Olivia Bomester, and I will be presenting the following topic: exploring closeness in parent-adolescent relationships in a semi-rural community within the Western Cape province of South Africa, a quantitative study. Now, just to give you a little bit of background pertaining to my study, we all know that adolescence signifies a pivotal phase in human growth, marked by numerous changes, such as physical changes, psychological changes, social changes, etc. This is a key transitional period, and we know that during this period, adolescents seek increased independence from their parents, and they also need to manage and also redefine their relationships with both their parents as well as their particular peers. Now, just to continue with the background of this particular study, closeness pertains to the emotional connection, specifically in this context between parents and adolescents. And we all know that this relationship remains crucial during this adolescent period, despite the changes which many adolescents are going through. Parents should act as essential attachment figures, providing emotional supports, security, and guidance as adolescents navigate the increasing complexities of their social context. If we go on further, I want to give you some context pertaining to this particular study. Now, this study was conducted on a semi-rural farm working community within the Western Cape province of South Africa. And this particular community remains underrepresented in South African family relationship research. And so I chose to focus on a particular colored community. And in this particular community, most of the individuals are Afrikaans speaking. And this particular community is marked by significant socio-economic hardships. Health services are scarce, with mobile clinics visiting only once per month. And the population faces high rates of tuberculosis, HIV/AIDS, and also teenage pregnancy. Educational attainment is very low, with illiteracy rates ranging between 20% to 30%, exacerbating the cycle of poverty, unemployment, and psychosocial stress. We also have additional factors such as substance abuse, fetal alcohol spectrum disorders, and also intimate partner violence. So given all of these intersecting difficulties, it is vital to examine how closeness in parent-adolescent relations function within this particular socio-economic or cultural setting. So this particular study aims to generate much needed insights into family dynamics in under-resourced, semi-rural contexts, and to contribute to more inclusive understanding of adolescent developments and relational resilience in South Africa. Let's have a look at the conceptualization of closeness. Particular scholars describe parent and adolescent closeness as the emotional connection that exists between a parent and their adolescent, characterized by mutual affection, trust, open lines of communication, and perceived supports. It is widely recognized within attachment theory that a close relationship between parents and adolescents serves as a secure foundation from which adolescents can pursue autonomy, distinguished by emotional availability, physical presence, and consistent responsiveness. Let's move on. The theoretical framework which I chose to focus on is attachment theory. Now, just to give you some background into attachment theory posits that interactions between caregivers and children during early development affect the stability of relationships as they progress over time. This theoretical lens is particularly useful when examining communities with limited resources and unique socio-cultural dynamics, such as those found within semi-rural South African contexts. In semi-rural settings where adolescents may face psychological challenges such as poverty, limited access to mental health supports, and evolving cultural expectations, The role of parents as consistent, supportive attachment figures becomes especially critical. Let's have a look at primary attachment styles in adolescence. So, various authors speak about the primary attachment styles which are prevalent during the teenage years. Firstly, we have secure attachment. Adolescents exhibit comforts with both intimacy and independence, trust others, they are able to communicate transparently and possess a self-worth, body image, which is very positive in nature. And then secondly, we have anxious, preoccupied attachment. And over here, adolescents yearn for closeness, yet harbor fears of abandonment, which can lead to clingy or demanding behaviors. Thirdly, we have dismissive, avoidant attachments. And over here, adolescents emphasize independence and emotional detachment, often concealing profound fear of vulnerability. Finally, we have the fearful avoidant attachment style. And over here, adolescents wish for intimate relationships, but simultaneously dread closeness, resulting in perplexing and inconsistent behavior. Now, during the adolescent phase, attachment styles may manifest quite differently compared to early childhood. But I think all of us are aware of the fact that the kinds of attachment styles that you have in terms of your early bonds with your caregivers or parents can predict the quality of the future ones which you can have. And if you have very good, healthy bonds during early childhood, it can cultivate healthy attachment bonds with your parents as adolescents. And these adolescents then are more likely to have positive interactions then with their parents. Key factors that affect attachment styles in teenagers include parenting approaches and various early attachment experiences. Regarding parenting styles, various researchers have indicated that authoritative parenting characterized by warmth, consistency, and clear boundaries foster secure attachments. So consequently, attachment theory highlights the importance of robust parent-adolescent relationships and emphasize the need for parents to create a secure environment that allows adolescents to explore and engage with the world around them. Let's move on to the methodology. So, as mentioned before, research is very limited regarding closeness within the South African parent-adolescent relationship context, particularly in marginalized communities. This study, therefore, explored closeness in parent-adolescent relationships in one semi-rural, low-income community within the Western Cape province of South Africa. In terms of the research objectives, the objective of the study was to investigate closeness within parent-adolescent relationships within these individuals who are otherwise locked out of mainstream dialogues due to poor socioeconomic standing. Specific research objectives included the following: examining both parent-adolescent perspectives on closeness, measuring levels of trust, communication, and alienation, and assessing time spent together and shared activities. In terms of my research design, this study was exploratory in nature and it utilized a cross-sectional survey research design. Specific questionnaires were utilized for both parents and adolescents, and I will be referring to those very, very shortly. In terms of the participants, on the next slide, you can see the criteria for the participants. I had adolescents, and they were falling within early, middle, and late adolescence. So the ages range between 12 and 19 years old. They were selected from a particular school within the semi-rural farming working community. And in terms of the criteria, the participants had to attend the high school or the secondary school in the local community. They needed to be Afrikaans speaking and living with their parents. They also needed to ensure that there was informed consent as well as assent. Criteria for parent participants included living in the identified community, being biological parents or step parents of the adolescent child, being Afrikaans speaking, and having the adolescent child residing in their home. Now, you'll be able to read through my journal article, which gives you some specific details pertaining to all of the instruments which I utilized. When it comes then to the parents as well as the adolescents, each of them completed demographic questionnaires, and this elicited information such as gender, age, language, religious affiliation, etc. And then we had the parents as well as the adolescents complete the relationship closeness inventory, and on the screen you will be able to see all of the psychometric information pertaining to this particular instruments. We had adolescents also complete the following instruments: the inventory of parents and peer attachments, and specifically the mother and father versions were utilized. On the screen, you can also read up about the psychometric information pertaining to this particular scale. And then when it came to the parents, they completed the demographic questionnaire as well as the RCI, and then the revised inventory of parent attachments. And again, you can see all of the information, the psychometric information pertaining to this particular scale. Once again, all of the detailed information pertaining to psychometrics can be found in the scholarly journal article, which I have written. In terms of my data collection, surveys were distributed through schools, through this particular school, with ethical permission secured. Data was collected manually and anonymized. And then for statistical analysis, the Statistica package was utilized. In terms of ethical considerations, I received ethical clearance from the university that I was studying at. I also received ethical clearance from the Western Cape Education Department, and so I was cleared to do this particular research study both with the adolescents at the school as well as with the parents, and obviously to ensure that everybody understood what was expected of them. We had parents signing informed consent sheets, and all of the adolescents signed assent sheets. Everybody was also told that they were freely able to withdraw from the study at any time. And this is just giving you some information pertaining then to the ethical considerations. So we are going to have a look in terms of the findings. The findings suggested that while some parent-adolescent conflict does tend to exist within the relationship, we find that a lot of the parents and adolescents did maintain strong emotional bonds in this particular community. Most parents reported rarely experiencing negative emotions such as anger and frustration with their adolescents, and most of them felt emotionally attuned to their children. Emotional closeness appeared stronger in mother-child relationships, particularly with daughters, as evidenced by higher levels of mutual understanding and communication. However, some adolescents reported ambivalence about their relationships with fathers, often citing a lack of support or attentiveness during times of emotional need. Mothers consistently spent more time with their adolescents than fathers. Adolescents not only perceived their mothers as more emotionally available, but also preferred seeking advice and comfort from them. Interestingly, adolescents reported both stronger emotional attachment and greater emotional intensity, such as anger and isolation, especially towards their mothers. Fathers, on the other hand, appeared less involved overall, especially with their daughters, often due to cultural discomforts with affectionate engagements post-puberty. However, some signs point to cultural shifts, with certain fathers showing increased emotional involvement, particularly with sons, and reporting conversations about personal matters as common shared activities. Time spent together was significantly influenced by gender. As mentioned before, a lot of adolescents prefer to spend a lot of time more with their mothers than with their fathers. Shared parent adolescent activities tended to revolve around daily routines such as cooking, cleaning, and also religious participation. While these interactions may foster a sense of togetherness, they were often activity focused rather than emotionally intimate. Nonetheless, there were emerging signs of change. Adolescents and fathers reported more frequent discussions of personal topics than traditionally expected, which may indicate evolving paternal roles. Cultural norms, economic constraints, and Christian values all shape the types of activities families engage in, highlighting the complex interplay between context and relationship quality. And so the aim of this particular research was to investigate characteristics associated with close parent adolescent relationships in low income, semi rural contexts within South Africa. The results of this particular study actually reflects that closeness is expressed in a socio-culturally specific environments, highlighting both similarities with international research studies and distinct local dynamics. At the core of this research was the examination of emotional connections, time spent together, communication, and shared activities, all of which serve as key indicators of closeness as defined by attachment theory. The results confirm that robust mother relationships, a pattern consistent with global literature, is actually very important. However, the existence of involved and emotionally available fathers in this context challenges the dominant stereotypes of paternal disengagement in South African families. This represents a particularly significant and optimistic finding, indicating that despite socioeconomic challenges, relational resilience is both possible and evident. If we go on a little bit further, we find that in this particular study, it contributes to a growing body of scholarship advocating for culturally responsive understandings of attachments, moving beyond Eurocentric paradigms to consider how closeness is enacted in communities shaped by historical inequality, poverty, and patriarchal norms. It also highlights the ongoing value of attachment theory as conceptual lens for understanding adolescent developments even in non-Western settings. Ultimately, this study demonstrates that closeness in parent-adolescent relationships is not only achievable in resource-poor communities, but is often maintained through creative adaptation, shared faith practices, and reciprocal emotional investment. These findings offer valuable implications for future interventions, family support services, and researchers aiming to understand and strengthen parent-adolescent bonds in similarly marginalized settings across South Africa and beyond. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and for more details, you are most welcome to read through my scholarly journal article based on the same particular topic.